भी देखो नहीं समझ we started. Okay. Let me also join. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible. If I'm audible, let me know. Just give me a second. So, am I audible? Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to this session. This is Ashutosh, and I would be talking today about one of the most contentious issues: public administration. Public administration, as many of you have already opted for this optional, and many of you might be wondering whether to go for this optional or not. Two things are very vital when you think of any optional. You might have been told there are several parameters to deal with a subject. Let me first shift our discussion from this optional to, in general, the study of UPSC or the preparation for UPSC and the study of varied subjects in UPSC. You start with, let's say, general studies paper, and maybe you will start with history or geography, or for that matter, maybe polity, right? Or in general, maybe economy, and likewise. Some may even start with ethics, right? Now, when you're starting or when you're studying your general studies paper, right, what is the first thing that comes to mind? That I have to know the information and as much information as possible. For example, you are talking about Gandhi's contribution to freedom or Indian national movement, for example, right? And you are concerned about the key points, the keywords, which will help you demarcate the knowledge of Gandhi's contribution to national struggle or freedom movement. And you identify some key dimensions or key timelines for that. 1915, Gandhi comes back. Before that, he had done a lot of work in Tolstoy form in Africa. His methods of resistance were different from any other, comparative situation anywhere else. Now see, when you are identifying this information, you are not only categorizing some facts or information, you are also in the same way trying to think beyond that information, that okay, what logic is there behind knowing this information. Now, many of you end up acquiring the information, but not necessarily the logic behind the information, right? And this is where the disconnection between the entire preparation or the effort that you have put and the kind of struggle that you go through in completing your syllabus, and then eventually the consequence that you face in the examination while dealing with the questions. That's a big disconnect. And imagine that too in 4 papers or 1000 marks. That's a big disconnect. And when you end up getting 40%, that is 400 marks or 420, 30, and you are very happy that, oh, you have scored more than 400 marks. Though the reality is that the kind of effort that you put, you must be scoring 500 marks. Maybe more. You're putting 1.5 years, almost 2 years into that preparation. Now, any area of preparation in UPSC will require 2 very important aspects to be dealt with. One, the nature of factual information, the factual knowledge that you gather, and other is the logical or the philosophical part of that knowledge. PubEd has combination of both. Every optional may have combination of both, except I would say the options which are physical sciences or natural sciences. They have their own dilemma, they have their own problems. So when you are dealing with any optional, think of very basic things. One, whether this particular optional or this particular subject holds my instant attraction or not. When I say instant attraction, it does not mean it has to be very interesting, it has to be extraordinary, it has to be something, no, nothing like that. But holds instant attraction means that is this optional, right? Creating a sense of engagement, a sense of interaction with me or not. The words that I read, the parts of the syllabus that I read, do they mean something to me or not? It's the same way of saying that some people like studying mathematics and some don't. But it's not more about liking. It is more about the connection that one has. One. So it's not an interest. It's simply just a connection. Interest is much more than that. Right? So interest may not be a criteria, because if you have interest as the criteria, many of the parts of the general studies you will never study. I don't prefer studying disaster management. I don't like internal security. Right? I may not like certain aspects of Indian society or even maybe world history. I don't want to read them. But then see, you don't have an option in that, right? And that's why I said instant. Right? You feel some instant engagement with the subject, with the words, with the keywords, with the vocabulary, with the nature of the subject. Good. If you do, definitely you may have chosen one of the or few of the options which you like first. Secondly, the optional has or should have a relative advantage considering the vast nature of examination. If the optional has lot of overlap with certain areas of your general studies or vice versa, I'm not saying just the optional, it may be the general studies having an overlap with the optional as well, or optional having some overlap with the general studies as well. So I would assume that, okay, my 15-20% of the time and effort might be saved in understanding one in one place or the same thing in another place. So I can bypass easily that 20% of the effort which I will have to duplicate if I do something else. Fine. Second, that's called efficiency criteria. The criteria of utility or utilitarianism. If you have studied ethics, or anybody who's studying general studies might be knowing the term utilitarianism. Right. That is second. Third, the expression. Now there are subjects which require deep expression. They require a lot of philosophical expression, like your essay paper. Even your ethics paper, the philosophical part A, it requires a very strong foundation of writing skills. In the same scenario, your humanities optional requires good foundation of writing skills. Now obviously, writing skills may vary as per the content and the nature of the optional. Though I would say that if you have certain skills which are developed already, or you can develop over a period of time, right, definitely you are going to reap much bigger benefits compared to revising the syllabus again and again. So if you revise at an optimum number of levels and you know the syllabus broadly with obviously the important facts, but you have invested more time in honing the skills of writing, you are going to benefit much more than anybody who reads so many other books apart from you. It doesn't matter. Public administration in that sense give you a range of vocabulary that can be used in numerous aspects of your general studies, and I'll tell you where. We'll talk about it today. Fine? Next. Now that is also one important criteria. Next. Is it relevant to what is happening around me? Does it give me a sense of comfort, a sense of common sense while I am reading newspapers or while I am studying many of the general events around me? Are they seen comfortably placed somewhere in my optional? Yes, they are. Public administration is an applied subject. Public administration is not a theoretical subject. It has its own theoretical boundaries, no doubt. It has its own theoretical idea, no doubt. But in that sense, it is theoretically fluidic. If you understand the term, it is theoretically flexible. It's not about too much of baggage, too much of unique terms which will be associated only with a scholar or a theorist. No, these theories are quite general in nature. And you can experience them, you see them around you most of the time. Let me give you one simple example. Many of you might have heard about bureaucracy. How many of you have heard about bureaucracy? You audible? Correct. How many of you have heard about bureaucracy? Anyone? Can you just answer me? Anybody? Nobody. How is it possible? How many of you have heard about bureaucracy? So if you have heard about bureaucracy, right, let's simplify. Bureau plus cracy. Bureau plus kratia. Bureau plus kratos. 2. It's a sleeping time for the board now, but at least not for you and me. So bureaucratia, bureaukratos, or bureaucracy or kratic. Bureau is an office. Cracy is a rule, authority, system, or the rule by office, where the officials rule. Or you can interpret in simple way also, where the officials make rules, implement rules, or they are the one who govern, exercise authority. That's bureaucracy. So if you've heard the name of Weber, Weber is the core of the entire public administration, and you will be surprised to know that if you have a sensible understanding of Weber, right, a sensible understanding of Weber's theory, then you can divide the entire study of paper 1 in public administration, pre-Weber and post-Weber. Imagine, just one scholar, one theory, and the entire sense of the paper created. Which optional gives you this flexibility? None of them. And I'll urge you to go and find out which of the humanities optional gives you this flexibility. None of them. So when you read Weber, right? When you read Weber, you will realize that most of the things I'm reading here theoretically, right, they are visible, they are visualized in front of me every day. So whatever features or characteristics he talks about, they are visible everywhere. They are practically visible, they are practically happening around you, and you have a lot of practical examples or facts to be collected from around you and put into the theory, and it will make sense. That is why we call public administration is an applied subject. It's a practitioner's subject. Those who are doing administration, or those who understand administration in the sense of doing it, in the sense of practice, in the sense of what is happening, they write better answers. They understand the subject in a much better manner. Though you cannot deny that there are conceptual knowledge related to this subject as well, and that also has to be acquired. But you imagine the keywords, the key terms, which gives you an immense power, an immense knowledge to deal with varied aspects of not only a paper but also general studies and even in essay. The themes that are visible in this paper, they are nowhere visible. In fact, those number of themes which are visible in this paper are nowhere visible in any other option. Next, let's come to the scoring pattern. Many of you might be conscious about it, right? Now, scoring depends. If you know this year's toppers marks, 270 around, right? And that too in an optional, which is definitely more popular nowadays. And after 6 years of hard work, 7 years of hard work, right? Hats off to her patience. But after so much of hard work and after investing so much of time, if you get 270, right, that doesn't seem to be much better, doesn't seem to be relaxing or comforting. With such effort, and if the public perception be that, okay, you are getting good marks in this optional, then that should be somewhere 310, 315, 320 maybe. So the simple idea is, do you get marks in the optional merely by choosing an optional? Merely by studying some optional you'll get marks? No. The marks in an optional are strategically acquired. And in that scenario, public administration obviously has much fair chance compared to others. Like I told you, if your sense of understanding is practical, you don't like too much of mugging, you don't like too much of rote learning, you don't want too much of stereotypical understanding. If you are open to ideas, if you are flexible to learning, if you have more open boundaries and curiosity, if you are willing to involve new developments, current perspectives, whatever there are, into your answers, obviously keeping the sense of the subject, you are more likely to score better than others, because the same process, 50% of that you would do for your general studies. In the same effort, you can multiply the benefit here, or here benefit, or this benefit will be multiplied there, only provided, there's a condition, provided you have, like I said, sense of the subject. So yes, maybe a part of the modern history you can memorize and say, okay, I know it. A part of the world history you can know the facts and talk about it. But see, there are a lot of undercurrents, there are a lot of between the line things which you have to know. If you don't know, you will never understand the question in the examination. PubAd makes you capable. It's an optional which makes you capable of looking at fine things, looking at micro things, understanding those things in a dimension, in a way in which you had not anticipated in your regular university study. References. Next point. References for the subject. Yes. There are varied references for the subject. This subject, because I said it is more fluidic. People say dynamic. I don't use the word because every subject has a static part which has to be written as it is. But this subject has, yes, lot of fluidic part, right? It's too flexible. And that is where your creativity comes into picture. Most of these students lack something called creativity. If it was not there, if creativity was too high, then obviously you would know that why India is facing a crisis of the skilled research manpower in this world. The education systems do not or have not created creative people. Even UPSC may not encourage too much of creativity, right? But yes, it cannot deny that importance in particular areas. For example, when you're writing ethics case study, or you're writing your ethics analysis of certain questions, quotations, or when you're writing essay, what do you think? Can you mug up those 2000 words? You cannot. You have to think, you have to think, you have to think, right? You become smarter by thinking smarter, not just by writing smarter. Writing is a manual exercise, but thinking and writing is both manual and intellectual exercise. Public administration is an optional which gives you that advantage, and it gives you that advantage many times more compared to others. So in sense, you have chosen the right subject. The only thing is that, have you been able to treat that subject with that respect, with that importance? The way you have chosen it, have you treated it in that manner? This is very important. Now there is a PubAd, 5,000 rupees wala PubAd bhi hai, 20,000 rupees wala PubAd bhi hai, 50,000 rupees wala PubAd bhi hai. So ye rupees important hai, yeah, the treatment of the subject important. This is also one myth, right, which I have to dispel, because that is also a big issue. That 5,000 वाला पढ़े, 10,000 वाला पढ़े, 20 वाला पढ़े, 50 क्या पढ़े? So obviously when systems were designed, when things were created, when obviously these systems were developed or evolved, the fee or the prices are natural evolution, right? So if you start, we started teaching in 2012, right? That doesn't mean the fees was 50,000. So there is a traditional economic scenario which goes on. We do not have control over that. No one will be happy, right, to overcharge or mischarge from the students. Nobody. If government overcharges me, I feel bad. The same I cannot apply to others. But imagine the price of an ecosystem that runs with a lot of things. It's not a mass or a herd study. Even if lakhs of people give, you know what is the percentage of people who qualify. So there is a need for a dedicated learning model. And it is true, it should be available to everyone, right? That is our logo or slogan, democratizing it. But here we mean democratizing means we debate, we discuss, we involve, we promote participation of students. We don't merely dictate things and make them just write or fill their notebooks without having any sense of knowledge. There is a lot of effort which is needed. That is why I said there is an X price per bed, there is a Y price per bed, there is a Z price per bed. These prices are not indicative of the quality of the content. So there must be a very clear-cut elaboration that, okay, which type of per bed or which type of optional has what type of uniqueness. How do we assess the depth and the range of knowledge and quality of these contents? That is equally important. Fine. But let us say, so there are so many myths around it, but it is not true, right? We have achieved the scores of 291, 287, 286, 274, 265, 277, and likewise, and I'm not talking about historical past, I'm talking just last 2 years. If I go back to the era from 2015, 14, 15 onwards, so there have been scores 309, 312, 301, 299, and likewise, even 318. See, should I take that as a trend? No. Even in those era where people were getting 305, 310, 320, 323, even in that era also, people who were able to score were the people who had given right and fair treatment to the subject. There are deviations everywhere. You might have seen this year, people are saying that we have scored 100 marks and not qualified prelims. Possible. Did not qualify the CSAT. Or maybe some questions were misunderstood, wrongly marked on the paper. It is also possible. Fine. Same way you will find that there are people who will say, we worked little, we didn't work that much, we did not read those many books, we did not do these things, we still got the marks. Yes. There are various factors which are at work. There is always a margin of error in the examination, and it is with everyone. I'll give you a very simple personal experience. The time when I did not know the subject very well, to be honest, being my first attempt, and I did not know it that well, that means I was not at all, much involved in the subject. I had done a more superficial reading. But yes, I had a flair for writing answers. I used to write regularly essays, and so I had a good enriched vocabulary with me, and I wrote it properly also, but I did not have that substance. I got 308 marks out of 600. That's almost 50%. More than 50%. Now the same thing, I studied more, invested another year, 6 months, 8 months in that, invested it, obviously it was in prelims also, so I had to give prelims also with the same subject, and I qualified prelims. And then when I wrote the answers, I thought, I have now acquired much depth than what I had done previously. And I got 323. What is the difference? 15 marks, 1 year's effort, so much of reading, lot of substantial knowledge, difference is 15 marks only. So people say scaling. These are hypothetical notions, right? UPSC would be scaling, UPSC would be normalizing, UPSC would be having its own internal procedure that may be applicable in prelims, that may be applicable in mains. We are not sure, we are not clear. UPSC never said it. But yes, there will be definitely some procedure. So can we say certain optionals have come under the scanner of scaling? No, it is not true. If you see the optionals which are as public perception as of now, PubEd has been popular since the time it has been in the civil services, right? There is no holding back. It has been always, even today. So when you say scaling, what be happening, right? How a scaling is done? Because that is also a very contentious issue. So I want everything to be dispelled to a student before he starts learning, so that he learns or he starts his journey with an open and free mind and not with a baggage. What is the scaling? A mathematics student gets 350, 400 marks because he can get it, right? He can get it. 400 marks. Another mathematics student gets 220 because obviously he could not get it. Now the examiner feels, okay, 300 or 400 is the highest in this subject, 220 is the lowest in this subject, right? Let's find out the range. The maxima in the subject, the minima in the subject, and likewise a calculation would be done. Fine, taking the base as the lowest marks. Then in PubEd, let's say the minimum is 200, maximum is 270, 280 maybe, right? Now maxima is 280, minima is 200. A range would be calculated. Now they will try to fit this bar of mathematics with this bar of public administration by adjusting this somehow, where bringing this little down, bringing this little up. And in this sense, try to understand, the lowest in PubEd would gain, but the highest in PubEd would not gain. I know how many of you are aware of the mathematics. But see, this is all pure perception. Do you think it would not be happening in anthropology? It would not be happening in political science? It would not be happening in sociology or any other optional, whatever. It's happening with every optional. The only difference is, if you're reading any XYZ optional, right, you may not be gaining 40% of the GS, but when you're reading PubEd, you are gaining 40% of the GS. Like I said, provided you understand how it is to be done. So even the system knows that if someone loses somewhere, he gains somewhere. Right? So see, this myth that there is scaling and then this is the, no system can work in a totally biased manner and say, no, I don't want these students to enter the civil service. This is not how it happens. You're using a question on the credibility of a very fair institution, even though it has come under scanner over various reasons. But even today also the exams are conducted on time. More or less the level of the exam is not declining. It is quite good and it is increasing, evolving over a period of time. So don't get into that debate. That is a illogical debate. So now, what exactly we will do now? See, so these are some of the myths. Marks have come. There are very good references to study. The nature of the questions are not erratic. People say, yes, I'll come to that also. Nature of the questions are abstract. What about ethics paper? What is the nature of question in ethics? Right? Let's say, what about paper 3? Economics, science and tech, environment, disaster management, internal security. What about those questions? Are they straightforward? If they're straightforward, then why you're not getting marks in that paper? See? What about questions in governance? What about questions in society? Paper 1. Because you do not have the liberty to bypass them, so you accept them as fate. Oh, GS to ऐसे ही होता है. नहीं. You have to understand the entire examination process, not just piecemeal evaluation. You cannot evaluate things in isolation from one another. This is what the nature of UPSC is, and it will always be. If you think you can run away from that, because you will not read this, you will not read that, you'll run away from this. You will not be able to run away. In fact, when you cannot run away, you should obviously choose something which helps you tackle it better. So when people say abstract nature, why? Because you have not studied between the lines. You merely want a verbatim replication of the knowledge and the verbatim application or replication of the question in the examination. You feel Prasad and Prasad, why the examiner is not picking up the line and asking me the question so that I can simply go and write few points there. They will never ask it. If it is so, then it is a university exam. Where is the competition? Right? Where is the benefit? Where is the utility of the entire effort that you have put? What is the use of all that? See? So these are a lot of myths which are associated. These myths have not to be brought into the class. These myths need not be accepted as barriers to your learning. These are all useless things. Once you start learning, you will realize that first, how interesting this area of study is, how generalized this understanding is. It is a true generalist subject. The nature of exam that you are giving is a generalist examination. UPSC is a generalist role. Civil services is a generalist function. And the nature of the PubAd study is highly generalist. Every aspect in your GS or whatever you do in an interview is designed around something called governance. If you know what governance is, public administration is a subject which mainly talks about governance, discusses governance, understands governance. The entire UPSC paper is somewhere based on the concept of governance. So when you think of the impact of globalization on Indian society, you are merely not just talking about social attributes. You will also have to understand political, administrative, economic and other attributes as well. Governance comes into picture because eventually if there are cultural changes, there are impacts, then there is someone or there are some institutions, systems which are going to deal with it. Who are them? Administration. If disasters come, who will manage it? Administration. If policies fail, who is going to tackle them? Administration. If judicial systems are not able to provide justice, right, eventually who is going to overcome or overview this problem? Governments. Judicial systems are not the islands in this, entire political system. They are not the islands. They cannot be, they are not sacrosanct. See, we are demanding impeachment of the Verma, Justice Verma. We have been demanding impeachment of removal of many other judges. So no systems can remain isolated. Everything is somewhere part of the governance. And if you go and look at the questions in the GS paper, you will realize that how they are molding the static knowledge in general studies, right, which you call as current affairs, static knowledge in general studies, they are molding it and fitting into the idea of governance. Fine. So these are some myths, some issues. So we had to talk about them because before dealing with these issues, you cannot have a free, fair, rational, logical mind to study the subject that you want. Fine. Now, so what, why, how, there are a lot of things we talked about, right? Let us also deal with something now, this subject. So as all of you know that, or at least you must be knowing that we have to study this optional, which is a very beautiful optional. It only demands your primary attention. Fine? It demands your absolute attention. Because you have a goal which is much, much, much superior to anything probably that you see around yourself. So you will have to reform yourself, your habits, your discipline, your understanding. You will have to reform it to suit the goal which you have decided, first of all. So you cannot be casual about it. You cannot say that, okay, yes, by talking about PubAd, by talking about UPSC, by listening to debates about UPSC, by evaluating how or what, how corrupt IAS is, how corrupt bureaucrat, by evaluating all these things, I will become a bureaucrat. You will not. Even if you know all the data regarding the inception of UPSC, since the inception of UPSC, right, that is 1926. The 1919 report, the Lee Commission report, and many reports on the basis of which the Federal Public Service Commission, FPSC, was created under British in India. If you know all the reports and data since then also you will not become civil servant. You cannot even qualify prelims. So qualifying an exam and talking about it, debating about it, discussing about it, podcasting about it, whatever, they are two different paths and they never intersect each other, never. They are two parallel paths. So you do the n number of analysis in this optional, that analysis, right? And eventually you will find out that there are people who are qualifying and getting through, and I'm the one who is analyzing and researching about it. So people are becoming IAS and IPS, but I have become raw, the research and analysis wing of the UPSC. So kindly don't get into those micro level analysis. Neither the exam works that way, nor your life works that way, right? They work in a very different scenario. So your paper has subject, your paper has two parts. As you know, paper 1, paper 2. Paper 1, right? It has 12 chapters or 12 units. It has around 14 units or chapters. In the examination, there are 6 to 7 units which cover around 75% and above paper. In this part, there are 8 units, fine, which will cover around 75% and above questions. And I'm telling you, this is a fact. This is not my perception. And I'll give you the proof. When we start the classes, you'll know it. So it covers this. Now, if I take this 12, and that is again the beauty of PubAd, that you start with A and you will eventually know the Z. You don't have to read A, B, C, D, E, F, G separately, right? But definitely, there is a way of doing it. Instantly, you cannot know from A to Z or A to Z. But yes, if you know A properly, you will automatically reach to Z. That's PubAd. And that is how it should be studied. That is how it will make sense to you. And that is why there are a lot of people for whom there is no sense in the questions which they see in the examination. That's the reason. So try to find out, introspect what exactly is wrong with you. It's an evolving subject. And you are treating an evolving subject with a static approach. Obviously, you are bound to fail in that subject. Right? But so is UPSC. Right? So UPSC is also evolving. You cannot say simply one subject is evolving, right? Entire UPSC is also evolving. Let's say, fine. Our smartness is to catch up with that evolution. That's it. Now see, in this paper, let's come back. In this paper, we have this 12 units. If we do 6 to 7 units, we will be able to cater to 75% of the question. When the question paper comes, it is divided into two sections, section A and section B. Same here. section A and section B, right? This has 4 questions, and obviously this also has 4 questions. Same here, 4, 4, right? Is it visible to you? Okay. 4 questions, right? Out of this, question 1 and question 5 here, right? They are compulsory. You don't have an option. Same is here. So you have around 8 questions. Out of these 8 questions, 2 are compulsory, 1 in each of the sections, and rest out of the 6 questions you have to do 3. Now what would be a smart strategy? The smart strategy would be that, okay, are there some 5, 6, 7, 8 units out of 12 which are perpetually visible in the paper? Are they dominant in the paper? Yes, let's find out. If I do that part, right, so well, will I be able to tackle the 90% of the paper? Yes. In that 90%, will I be able to score 100%? Obviously, you cannot, right? But will I be able to score 60, 70% marks? Yes, you can, because you have strategically defined the syllabus. You have strategically interrelated the syllabus. You have very smartly utilized the intellect that you have in order to rationalize, simplify the study of the paper. If you don't do that, you are taking up this, right, Govardhan Parvat on your head, and you're moving from here to there, and then you're saying, oh, ये तो बड़ा मुश्किल है, बड़ा tough है, oh, language कैसी है, answer question कैसा, see, it is like this, so you'll crib, because you don't have the idea what the problem is, and you never obviously search for the solution. These units which I'm talking about, this is the paper, right? Many of you will say, that is also a doubt. Paper 2 का content अच्छा नहीं है, paper 2 कम है, paper 2 is more dynamic, and how do we know, how do we study it? Let me come with a very basic idea. You need 290, let's say 275 plus good score. How can you get it? Let us say in one paper you get 100, another you may get 175, which is unlikely scenario. Nahi hoga. Fine. Let us say you try to be 120, 155. Yes, to an extent, possibilities. Hai. Fine. Now see. Or you may say, okay, I will get 130 and 150 around. Yes, possible hai, bilkul. Right? Or you reverse it, you can say I will get 150 here, 130 here. Now try to understand. You study polity, you study governance, you study ethics, you study a lot of general studies, and you study this part in PubEd as well. So when you are studying the same thing in GS, when you are studying the same thing in PubEd, should you not be able to score higher in that paper? But many of you are so conscious and nervous that, okay, we don't know, paper 2 has dynamic questions. But you are studying it. 12 months, 13, 14, 15, 16 months you are studying GS. In that at least 2-3 months you are studying this part. And then you are studying 2.5 months of this paper in public administration as well. Why are you not able to do it well? I'll tell you why. Right? Why you're not able to do it? Because you don't know this part. You don't know the basic theory. So when you say, oh, I know a plus b square, fine, and I don't need to know obviously Pythagoras theorem. Why do I need to know what is Pythagoras theorem? I don't need the proof of that theorem, but I need to know a plus b whole square is a formula, and that means a square plus b square plus 2ab. Prime Minister knows it better. We are to just merely academic people. Right? Politicians are much more evolved than us. Right. So, when people say, oh, ye 2ab kahan se aaya? You might have heard the statement. Then they should go and read the Pythagoras formula and Pythagoras derivation to know ye 2ab kahan se aaya. See, I'm trying to prove a simple point. You cannot mug up a fact or an information and you might think that you have knowledge of a particular subject. No. For knowledge, you have to go back into theory. You have to understand the basic premise behind it. You have to understand the basic intellectual contribution of people in that area so that you make sense of the formula or the diagram or the example that you are using. So paper 2, which is Indian administration, and paper 1, which is theories of, or which is basically the theory part of administration, right? The theory is the building block, is the basis of understanding. Most of the people, not most, I'll bet 99% of the people you go and meet in Rajendra, anywhere in this country, right? 99% of the people who are studying PubAd from any XYZ, they will not be having command over theory. Most of them are crying. Most of them are scared of the theories. And theories form the 90, 70, 80%, I would say, part of paper 1 that you give. So are you able to score in paper 1? No. And when you don't know the fundamentals of paper 1, will you be able to score in paper 2? No. Or yes, you might be one or two isolated case who gets good marks in paper 2 but 0 in paper 1. Now, do you understand why you score less? Because conceptual, right? Many of the students whom we teach, or many students, right, who are our students, they are conceptually so strong in paper 1 that even if they write a substandard answer, they tend to score 140, 130, 135, not less than that, even if they're writing substandard answers, or even if they're not prepared that well. Why? Because their conceptual understanding is very strong. Yes, paper 2 demands factual knowledge, but on the basis of paper 1. So you should understand why you score less, because paper 1 is a tough part. It's a theoretical part. It's concept based for any optional. In public administration, it becomes little bit more conceptual. Why? Because it is something which is still evolving. Still new things are coming to that. But you know, fundamentally only two things are there in the entire debate and the theories. Is public administration related to the study of efficiency and productivity, or public administration is related to the study of public welfare and public interest? These are the only two things around which all the theories have developed, you know. And that is the beauty of knowing the concept. Once you know it, you read any XYZ thing, you will understand it. Once you don't know it, and you go and see the question paper, then you'll say, oh, what is this? All Greek to me. That's the problem. That is why scoring may be erratic. Someone getting 290 and someone getting 200 only. That happens in every optional. Not just this optional. But in this optional, it is more pronounced. Why it is more pronounced? The reason. But all those students who have conceptual understanding, they doesn't score below 230, 240 marks. In general, when I'm saying, even if they have not completed the paper and they have not done very well. Otherwise, 270, 260, 70 is normal, they get marks. So you see, an optional where even average marks can be scored, which are equivalent to the other optionals good marks. Why? If conceptually you are good. In other optionals, to score that much marks, you have to mug up a lot of content. And definitely you are free to verify everything. Right? So if you mug up 200 pages or you conceptually understand 20 pages. See, it is up to you. The bargain you have to choose. So let us say you have this as the scoring pattern. If you are able to, do this well, automatically one part of this can be done very well. For the other part, obviously, you have to be aware of the current issues. Obviously, that you read in your GS as well, and obviously you read that in the classes as well. Whatever is needed, whatever is necessary, that is to be done. Fine. Then, so if we make a very good combination of these two, right, we are able to develop something called interlinks or interlinkages. We are able to understand the overlapping. Right? We are able to understand the theory that you are studying in paper 1 plus practice or application that you are basically studying here. See, it's so simple. It's not at all tough. The only thing is that you must know the strategy. If you don't know the strategy, if you don't work with the best, if you don't want the best of the best understanding, right, and you are happy to settle for the mediocrity, ultimately your results will reflect the same thing. Even your understanding, your benefit in whatever areas you could have taken will never happen. So treatment of the preparation, that is a very vital aspect. Most of us ignore that idea. Theory plus application. Now here you can very beautifully involve second ARC. What is second ARC? Second ARC was a commission formed by the government to review the reforms in administration in 2005. Why it is called second? Because there was another committee which was the first, which was formed in 1966. So that was first ARC, and then we have second ARC formed in 2005, right? Now the beauty of this second ARC is that it helps us understand what are the themes, not current issues or not current affairs, but it helps us identify the important themes and important issues in Indian administration. What has been the problems? What have been the reform issues in Indian administration since independence or since the first ARC? It gives you a lot of knowledge. It gives you a lot of depth, the broadness, the width of understanding of Indian administration, which you cannot find in any of the books. For Indian administration, there are few references which generally people have to read. Fine, but while you are doing the class, obviously you don't need all of that. I will definitely tell you what certain pages to read, but notes and content will be enough for that. Everything. You don't need anything. Current perspectives, obviously, we are going to discuss in the classes. So 5 days classes, the 6th day we'll write the draw sheets, we'll write answers, and then also we'll discuss certain current perspectives or issues which are vital for your subject, not only for subject but for ethics as well as governance as well, and even to an extent in essay. We have to multiply, and that is why we are choosing this optional. We have to multiply our benefits. We have to reduce our time. We have to, what you can say, amplify our chances of getting through. That is the idea. That is the target. So this themes, secondary RC, once it is integrated, right, through these themes, it will become easy for us to understand what reforms are needed in Indian administration, why such problems are happening, why local governments are failing, how local governments are improving the lives of people in the rural areas. Why developmental schemes are not being able to be implemented properly? Why corruption has become a menace in administration? To what extent disaster management strategies need to be learnt by administrators? How administrators or collectors can develop skills in dealing with these problems? See, that's second ARC. People say, oh, do I need to mug up, sir, second ARC, 14 reports, thousands of pages? You don't have to. Otherwise, why will you come to me then? Go and do it yourself. Plus, reading once is not enough. Reading once, you may get some information. You may get a compilation of that, which will give you information. But what about the logic in which it is written? How to use the content of that second ARC? How to manipulate it to suit our conditions today? We have to learn that also. That comes only after 2, 3, 4 readings. So what we have done in 15 years, you simply use that experience, right? Don't reinvent the wheel again and again. That is not why you join a coaching. That is why the difference between the 5,000, 20,000 and 50,000, right? I'm not justifying the price. I'm simply saying there is a difference. There is a limitation. The quality of teacher matters. The quality of content matters. The legacy of the teacher matters. The experience matters. The books matter. What books you read. You read Mohit Bhattacharya and you read Prasad and Prasad, or you read Sharma and Sadhana, you see the difference. Automatically it will be visible. But obviously to read them also you need some basic level of intelligence or basic level of effort has to be done. So if we are able to associate these two easily, our problem of interlinkage, problem of overlapping or understanding of overlapping, theory plus application, second ARC will be resolved, and in this we'll be able to add the current perspectives. Most of our problems are resolved. Most of our understanding will be resolved if we are very strong and thorough with this paper. Now the problem is theories, concepts, principles, they require a lot of effort and understanding. They are not easy to understand. So people say, oh, Prasad and Prasad, right? Mug up Prasad and you will not be able to solve even a single question in the examination. And I guarantee you, read one chapter from Prasad and Prasad, a book which is generally recommended for theories. Go and take up the question paper of 2024. Try to solve a question. A compilation of information, compilation of facts will not give you answer. You have to, like I said, read between the lines. So whether it is Sapru or Prasad and Prasad or Nicholas Henry or Avasthi and Maheshwari, right? All of them require an undercurrent, the understanding of this subject in a very subtle manner, in a very underlined manner. Many times when you read, then you start developing this idea. There's a theory, very interesting idea. I don't know how many of you know about it, but there's an interesting idea. The idea of deconstructivism. Deconstructivism, a very famous scholar, Jacques Derrida. And many will say, oh, मुझे इतना क्यों जानना है? Fine. So go and ask the people who gave prelims this year. क्यों जानना है? It's not that you have to have infinite knowledge, but then you cannot deny the relevant knowledge. You cannot confine yourself into a well and say that this is the world. No. UPSC requires transformational, and it becomes easy for them. It's always tough for those people, right, who have understood, who have studied since the beginning of their life, obviously because of many reasons, not because they could not, right, or not because they didn't want it to, but many of the reasons they have studied things in isolation from each other. To make that sense, they have to put a lot of effort. Why Hindi medium has failed? Because of the same reason. You give them one page, they will memorize dot and comma. They have that ability. They will memorize the dots and the commas. Why are they not getting marks? Why are they not getting selected? Right? Sense is missing. Jacques Derrida is a scholar who talks about deconstructivism. He is a scholar in postmodernism. Very popular scholar. So he talks about simple idea, deconstructivism. Have you heard about it? Anyone? Deconstructing the reality. Reality is not what we see, right? Or you can say the reality is what we think we see. But everybody who is looking at something, let's say a glass of water, simply, right? Now people say half full, half, oh, that's all stereotypical idea. Let's say a glass of water. Somebody is observing the glass, somebody is observing the water, somebody is observing the void, the emptiness. Somebody is observing the table on which that glass is kept. Somebody is observing the woman, the lady who's holding the glass maybe, right? Somebody is looking at the reflection of the light or the imprint of the light which is coming through that glass and falling somewhere. Everybody is observing. Everybody has their own conclusions. Everybody has their own understanding of what that glass is for them. That's called deconstructivism. Very interesting. So the problem with paper 1, the theory part is that majority of the people, right? And that is why, see, the idea, to be very simple, democratizing is word we have not just used, casually because it feels good. Fine. We use this term in 2020. After that, obviously, we did not work much in online, right? Because we are still the kind of people who believe that the knowledge is more blackboard and pen, not just the PPTs. So, the term, right, duly signifies something. Learning. Fine. The moment you say, okay, you democratize something, what does it mean? Participation. How do you participate if you don't know? How do you become part of that if you don't know? So theory is that part which requires lot of micro level understanding, lot of small bits and pieces, but it is so interesting. Once you know that, half of your governance, more than half, 90% of your governance understanding is done. Your ethical theories, your administrative ethics, your philosophical part of the case study of ethics, almost complete. Now imagine what you can do, what wonders can you do with this knowledge. But like I said, this part is tougher part. Why it is tougher part? Because it is the building block, it's the cell, it's the micro ingredient of what you're going to do later, what you're going to study later. So it is little tough in the beginning. When I say tough, anything that you're going to start is tough. But that is why we are there to make it simple for you. Fine. So this idea duly applies to this. Theories have multiple interpretations. There is a logical understanding. We read the text, we read the notes, we say Weber, ye points hai, Likert, these points, this point, but we never come to the core understanding of that. Why? Because we don't read that much. Mohit Bhattacharya is the Bible. Mohit Bhattacharya is the God. Yes, right? In what sense? The moment you read the Bible and you don't know the alphabets, you don't know the grammar, you don't know you don't even have the sense, spiritual sense, or religious, that dogmatic belief in religion. You read that, you'll say, what rubbish is this? For a beginner, for a first timer who has not understood the basic logic behind the subject, who does not treat the subject with this kind of approach, for him, for her, Mohit Bhattacharya is a garbage. Nicholas Henry is useless. What is there? Nothing, because you can't make sense out of that. First line of Mohit Bhattacharya, if you read it, have you read it, that book? If you read ever that book, right? New Horizons of Public Administration. He has written a lot of other books. New Horizons of Public Administration, the first line, it is presumably quite easy to understand public administration. That's the first line. His line starts with that. It is quite easy, presumably, to understand public administration. Yes. But then the second line he writes, but it also depends upon the perspective that we follow or the way we are trying to understand it. So it's simple, right? If we have the right lens, if we have the right strategy, if we have the right understanding, simple. The moment we get it stuck into commas and dots and this, we are gone, because then we are far away from the idea of the subject and the examination. Right? So let us keep it that way. Now, so in this paper, you do it properly. You have won half the battle here. You are able to interlink these two. You are able to apply second ARC properly. You have basic good knowledge of current perspectives, right? You will be able to do very well. So the target should be that because this is conceptual, less people understand it. People face a lot of difficulty in understanding this paper, right? Even teachers difficulty in teaching this paper, right? So what is my target? That I need to get an edge here. And in this paper, I will also work hard, no doubt, and I can have above average or equivalent to others, even if I get equivalent to others. Even if I utilize my general studies knowledge, I may be fairly able to get 110, 120, 30, right? But if I take advantage here, then it's quite difficult for anyone to beat me. Why? Because this is the area which is complicated and people don't understand. And this is where our expertise lies. And I'm with all modesty, with all humility, I'm saying it, right? We don't believe in this, just a casual talk, whims and fancies, right? Callous attitude. We don't have those. We have videos, we have everything content available. You take any video, any XYZ institution. They are not, nobody's institution, they are institutes. Fine? So you take that, read it, compare it, and you will know. If you have an iota of thinking mind, you will understand. We don't have to tell that, right? I'm not promoting, this is not a promotional video. Many of you are already admitted. I'm just using the idea to help you understand that why we put a lot of effort here. Why do we invest a lot of brain, gray cells here? Why do we invest a lot of effort here? So that you become cut above the rest. That's the idea. Now the problem is that students, including you, me, even when we were, everybody is looking for that easy path. And there is an easy path, right? Which begins with a tougher part. Now if you just overcome the tougher part, everything becomes easy. It's the same thing. More sweat in the training, less blood on the border. That's how it happens, right? Now, so we have, why do we do it now? Because we understand that knowing the concepts, doing these things is not easy. So we have integrated, as you know, the draw. A draw, don't take it literally. See, that is why it says daily revision, not daily answer writing. Daily revision and answer writing. If you don't write, whatever we have taught you, whatever effort we have put, whatever content we have delivered to you, that has no sense if you don't use that in the exam. And how are you going to develop a command on that subject, on that content, on the matter that we want you to, right? Only by revising. And this revision must be translated into answer. That is what we do, right? So as of now, around more than 75 sheets, draw sheets with 2 questions, that is around 150 questions, along with your PYQ to be done. And the PYQ will only make sense when you understand the subject. If you're looking at PYQ right now, just make sure that you look at it in a very superficial manner, because the moment you start reading PYQ, you'll feel demoralized and demotivated. Any subject. In GS, you might feel little good about it, right? But in any optional, generally when you read PYQs, you'll find, because questions in the exam are designed keeping in mind that the person or the student has studied everything. They are not designed in a way that only this topic will be asked in the exam. It is not how it is conducted. So you have to think about it, right? That what will be the sense of the PYQ for me right now? Later on, everything is integrated in the class that we'll do. So see, we'll do around 150 questions. We'll discuss it, format it, and integrated lot of questions from PYQ. Lot of PYQ integrated into classroom discussions already. And not just integration of PYQ, it is also the understanding of the way, the logic in which the question was asked. So virtually in these 5.5 months that will be there, you have to just do what we are doing in those 2.5, 3 hours. You don't have to do anything else. You have to just go back and complete the task and come back next day. That exactly you have to do for next 5.5 to 6 months. Go back, do the task, complete the task, come back again. Go back, do the task, come back again. Keep doing it. It will not be so boring, don't worry. Right? Our classes are not boring. The only thing is that we don't make reels out of that. That's the only difference. Fine. So you will actually love the process. Knowledge has a very important impact. It stimulates your brain. Right? That's much bigger aspect, much bigger experience than merely, the physical comfort or the material comfort that you have. So when you start enjoying the process, you will realize that the purpose for which I am here, the goal which I have decided, it was much easier than I actually felt. Until now, I was only working through the perception of others, and I did not have my first-hand experience of anything. Your experience is your own, nobody can take it from you. People can only share their experiences, right? You cannot empathize with them, they cannot empathize with you. Your experiences are your own. They are different from others. People manning the same post, collector, being in the same job, IAS, right? They have vastly different experiences from each other. See? How do you think every aspirant will have the same experience? No. So some people can share their experience, they can give you some words of wisdom, but then they will make only sense to you only when you put them into the process of your own experiences, right? Otherwise, they have no sense. So experience it yourself, right? Understand it, use it. So this will be done. As you know, I've told you, we'll go through a process, the process of learning. We start with keeping in mind that you know zero. Obviously, we assume that you have basic understanding of something called English, not the Tharoor wala English, fine, but at least the, if not Shashi Tharoor, then who? Fine. Let's take the legendary Laluji wala English. Please, the supporters, don't be offended. We are using them as important personalities in our discussion. So, the logic is that when we say basic language, which is only the simplest input that is needed, and we will try to develop that also, and we develop that. If you go and talk to any of the previous students, old students, anyone who get online, wherever, you will realize that they have drastically transformed their ability to learn, comprehend, read and write, all of that. So we believe that when we work with you for 5 to 6 months, our duty or moral obligation is not just to teach you that one subject, but also to make you transformational in your approach while you are dealing with the entire UPSC as a process, right? Obviously, because we also have knowledge of the entire process. The people with us, right, they are the ones who have also given interviews, they have qualified also, many of them. So there is a collective wisdom of years and years of study and years of experience in this field, right? So see, merely talking about the idea, merely discussing about the idea, merely analyzing the data and the facts related to something is not going to give you anything, right? In the end, except a gossip for that, right? A good gossip, right? A legitimate gossip, it seems like, but it is eventually a gossip. So, fine. So ultimately, we will start with the idea. We'll start with the topic. It is a simple subject. Like I said, common sense. If it is developed, it will be used. Further, this subject is going to give you immense advantage, like I say every time, provided you are going to use it. Fine. See? Then, this is all about the class. Now, as I say, subject. So just very briefly, I'll tell you, right? When we study public administration, we start our basic understanding from the most simplest thing that most of you or all of you know. The simplest thing. Right? When we use two words, political system and society. Hope most of you must be knowing about these two things. What is a political system? What is a society? What is a political system? Power. What is a society? Collective conscience. Power, collective conscience. What is power? Power is an entity. Fine? Which makes those who have it enforce their will over others, those who have it, or who don't have it. That's power. So imposing your will over other is power. Either you do it legitimately or illegitimately. The moment you become legitimate, you create a political system or you create a state. A government system, you create it. And you say, what will this government system do? It will exercise power. What is power? Is it a material quantity? Is it visible to you? No. The power is that law, power is that procedure, power is that force which we create. Hypothetical idea. And which is then exercised over other. How it is exercised over other? Because collectively as a society, we have accepted this system of power. If you are able to understand these two things, you have understood half of public administration, half of sociology, half of so many things. Even political science. Have you been able to understand this simple idea? Collective conscience, our collective will. We have collectively decided we will have a system which is going to exercise power on us, which is going to govern us. Okay, yes, it will govern us. Yes, we have collectively accepted it. Collective conscience. Right? Our hearts are connected. Our thoughts are connected. Our basic understanding, our basic viewpoint is connected. Collective conscience. We are a community. We think alike. We act alike. Or we at least have the same sense. Collective conscience. So a society which wants it to be governed through power creates a system. And this gives the birth The cross fertilization of these two gives birth to what we call a very smart child known as public administration or simply administration. See, the fertilization, the cross fertilization of these two leads to a system called public administration. इनका जो यूनियन है उसका जो आउटकम है वो है पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. That is what we have to study. Fine, so we'll do a lot of things. We have developed a lot of things for you. Just a simple glimpse, okay, fine. Like there's a lot of trend analysis we have done. We'll start with the classes with this entire idea, fine. So, right, entire trend analysis for many years, what exactly comes, how every section is divided into questions, what aspects of the paper are for certain topics are more important, how they have to be dealt, how do you visualize, how do you understand, make sense of a topic, fine. That is why I said a point of time will come, your syllabus or books will be immaterial, it doesn't matter. You simply go to the paper, you know you have to choose 5 questions, you got it, write it, come back. Simple. Don't get stuck into too many specifics. Fine. So we have created things already for you. Same way, lot of ideas developed. Fine. So we'll deal with the classes in the same way. Plus, I'm trying to develop some very interesting things, simple things, because as I know, obviously there are a lot of information, facts to be understood. Fine, it's not that simple. So we are trying to develop a lot of things in that way. Fine, pictorial representations, the summarization of scholars, their key ideas, how to utilize that in an answer, how to use a definition, how to give good quotation. See, there are a lot of things which go into making a topper, which goes into making a person who is worthy of scoring 200, 300 marks. It's not that simple. That is why when we are looking at a motivational video, we feel good. Our dopamine increases to a large extent. But when we are putting that, when we try to put that effort on the ground, when we sit on the table and try to do it, see, the same way the dopamine goes down. And we start experiencing the stress hormone, cortisol, you know. You know about this, right? You'll get to know a lot of things. I'm telling you, right? We are not just a copycat, stereotypical, boring, humor, devoid process, right? We don't believe in that. You have to be smart. You have to work in one of the best jobs in the world, not just in India. You have to deal with one of the most changing environments the world is facing in ever since its inception, since the civilization, right? It's one of the most evolving times in the world. There are wars, there are security issues, there are environmental issues, there are technological challenges, right? There are human rights challenges, there are, the natural disasters, and there are a lot of things which are happening: data privacy, scams, thefts, technology, many things, right? AI taking over the humans. And see, you are going to inherit a world which requires people who can think horizontally, laterally, vertically, right? All about 360 degrees, and who have again the sense of humor to deal with the biggest challenges in the simplest manner. That is called decision making. See, so you are being trained for that, and we are happy and we are proud also that we have an important contribution to that training. The best students we teach enter the civil services. When they enter the civil services, they are already having a basic, not basic, even an evolved form of understanding, at least a theoretical knowledge, which probably number of years of university knowledge will never give. So a student who is studying 5 to 6 years in university and students who are studying 1 year or 6 months to 8 months, they have similar, maybe more level of knowledge. See, practical knowledge, not just information. So there are a lot of things we'll do, right? Like I told you, then we will have developed content, right? There's a developed content for you. You don't have to read anything beyond that. If there are certain things which seem to be evolving, which seems to be dynamic, or they are somewhere visible in the Indian Institute of Public Administration Journal, or American Political Science Review, or in general the World Bank reports, or Center for Good Governance reports, or UN PAN, which is obviously no more functional now. So, or likewise, so if we find that there are certain other institutions, research organizations, references which are necessary for you to know, right? You will know it in the class, don't worry. We read more than the students, so we read more than the aspirants itself. So, right? So that is not a problem. You read, you do your work. The rest of the work we are going to do for you. Then there is a Bridge magazine. The Bridge will help you in having a very broad, a very, exclusive understanding of many current affairs topics for PubAd, current affairs topics for ethics, for governance and like. As you know, these areas are connected. They require some duplication of content. They require some overlapping ideas to be understood. So that magazine gives you a very broad perspective of current affairs, and this is generally given to internal students, right? And many people, or many of them, have appreciated this initiative. Though it is a big taxing, because we are not just confined to PubAd, we are taking that domain into governance and ethics and into certain areas of financial administration and economic policies. But yes, it will give you a lot of perspective, good understanding of various topics and how they will be linked to your subject. So technically you don't have to do anything. Like I said, you have to come, you have to study, go back, revise, complete the task which has been given and come back again. Your regularity is the only key to the heroic performance that you want, right? Nothing else can guarantee that, right? Plus an open mind, a creative soul, a humorous demeanor. You have to feel good about what you're doing. You don't necessarily have to be judgmental, opinionated, jealous, overtly competitive. Don't be all that. Simplify things, right? Untangle it, declutter it. You will get numerous benefits, right? First is the peace of mind. Once you have that, definitely you can study better. So this is all for today. This was supposed to be an introduction, a basic idea, obviously to deal with a lot of myths and problems and issues which people might have. We also got a lot of questions from the student, and that is why we are addressing them. There was one very small point. Many students said, many students feel that way, right? That yes, if we study online, then this may happen. That we have a big legacy, right, of 15 years, 14 years, and I have been individually as a name, in spite of the institutions I created and then probably dismantled or dissociated. Those are different things. But as an individual, I have here, right, like a Bargat ka ped since long time now. Many of your so-called tube babas or YouTube babas who have come, many of them have come in front of us. Many of them technically were never known, right? So we are still there in the Rajendra Nagar since the time of transition. The syllabus changed, the exams were changed, the entire structures were reformed. We are since then, right? And many of the babas who were nowhere babas anywhere, who were just some good teachers, right? We are there since that time. So if you feel, any of you might have that also as a question mark, right? Okay, what will happen? See, so our legacy is way past those doubts and issues, right? Nobody can question that, or nobody can raise a doubt regarding that. Once we have promised, we fulfill everything, more than what you can expect. And you can, like, there are obviously students, a lot of students who have studied, who have qualified, right? If you ever encounter any one of them, you can just find out and you will know. So when students leave, right, generally see it's more of a bargain, a contract, right? You pay and you get But when they leave, they know, they realize that they have been or they have gone through a transformative experience, and it is for me also. It is not just one way. But see, the way we deal with our work, right? We are very serious about it. We are very sincere about it. Fine. The question is whether you are or not. That's more important. Fine. So if you have any myths, any problems, any issues, do come and discuss. We are here sitting in Rajanagar. Come and talk to us, meet us, whatever. Right. So see you then in the class. As of now, I've tried to give you some basic understanding, whatever is there, and rest. Obviously, we'll start with the ideas. I would just like you to have notebooks or iPads or whatever you have. Keep it with you, right? Organize your notes and the content in the way it is given in the class. Eventually, you will have to revise them. The same thing, right? Write the keywords somewhere. Make columns on the side. Put the keywords as a link for what was discussed. Just keep these things. Your content will be in the form in which you can write the answers in the examination, right? You don't need anything else. You don't need anything else. So that is what we want. We don't want you to have a biased, prejudiced perspective. Fine. So thank you so much. I won't bore you now today, right? So we'll meet in few days whenever the class starts. And whatever doubts you'll have, you can come and again we can address them. Thank you so much for watching, listening to us. If you have any doubts and queries, do write. If you want to ask something, you can write it. You can send the messages or the emails, right? We'll look into it. Don't worry. See you then in the class. All the best. Thank you so much. Good day.